Hey, what's up guys? We're going to go over crosshairs and all the crosshair commands that are in console that are available to you and all the crosshair commands that are available in your GUI here. So going into the game settings, we have crosshair style and color in the options here. And we have a lot more options available in the console. So enable developer console, yes. Going into first here, default crosshair. This is the default CSGO one. And it reacts to pretty much everything, as you see here. Jumping, running, it expands and shows you when you're most accurate or when you're inaccurate. Ducking, you're most accurate, and if you shoot here, it shows your recoil as well there. So this might be helpful to a newcomer to CSGO that's not really sure how the guns react. So it can be useful, and it also, when you see an enemy here, it shows, or the crosshair turns red there, and if you see a teammate, it goes and puts an X over top of that. So that is the default crosshair, guys. Going into the next one, default static is the default CS:GO one. It still does all these changes when you look at a teammate or enemy, but it just doesn't move or react to your actions such as shooting, jumping, ducking. So that is that one. And by the way, guys, crosshair is always preference. It's whatever you're comfortable with. And going into the next one here, we have classic. And there are a lot of options with classic here, guys. So going into the console here, we have CL crosshair _ dynamic. And we have these four commands here. All the dynamic commands are only specific to this crosshair. So the max dist _ split ratio. This is the amount of your crosshair that gets split when actions happen. So if I do 75%, dot 75, as you see here when I shoot, the outer portion has the 75% of the crosshair when it splits like that. And if I put 25, it's the opposite. Now the outer part that's flicking out is the smaller, and the stuff that's staying within the center crosshair is the one with the more of the percentage. So if you do .5, which is equal, as you see there, it splits equally. So that's what that does. And you can see when it jumps here, you can see how it gets split when actions happen like this. So such as running, it doesn't do anything, but when you jump here, it splits, or when you shoot, it shows and splits the crosshair. So that's the split ratio of your crosshair. Going into the next dynamic command, we have split alpha. And what alpha commands are is how well how visible the crosshair is. So the inner MOD, you can call it inner mod, will do 1.0. So that should be fully visible here. So as you see there, the inner one is fully visible, and I'll put it really low for you, 0.1. As you can see now, the inner crosshair is very light and barely visible. So that's pretty much just changing the alpha of it and how visible it is. So if you wanted to have the inner mod always stay very visible and have the outer mod be less visible when this happens. So you can see here the inner one stays intact, but the outer actions, are faded away. So if you wanted to do split ratio, say 0.2, with the outer mod very visible, so you could have the actions be very tiny and hardly be visible. I don't even know if you can see it on the video right now, and then have the inner crosshair pretty much just react like that. So that's pretty much all the dynamic commands. I think we missed just one here. So the split distance ratio, split dist, basically just shows the distance that it can go. So if we have here, as you can see here, it changes pretty much the gap of the crosshair. So if we move here, I'll just show you running on this setting here, going down to 3, makes it a little bit tighter. 1, it's really tight there. 10, it's splitting a lot when you do actions such as jumping like this. So if we went down to 3 again, you see it doesn't split that far when actions happen. So that is the last dynamic command. Going to the next crosshair here, we have a classic dynamic, which is going to be, it reacts to your jumping, your shooting, but it doesn't have any of those, that fancy second crosshair within the crosshair kind of deal. It just reacts to your shots and your jumps. Personally, I don't like this because I think it splits too far when you do stuff, such as, you know, even shooting like that, you kind of lose the center of your crosshair unless you were to have a dot, which we'll get into all this stuff later, but once again, it's all preference here. But if you did have this kind of command, it does really show your recoil well, so you can see when you're shooting, when you're inaccurate, when you're jumping, or something like that. But yeah, that's what classic dynamic is here. Then classic static. This is personally what I use. I like when my crosshair doesn't move at all, no matter what I do. Shooting, ducking, jumping, it's just staying the same. I like it just because I don't need to see what my crosshair is doing. I kind of know how the game reacts, and I have enough experience to. I just want my crosshair to be a stationary object, and I just want to. That's just my preference. So that is that. And there's actually one more style that's not in the options. If you do CL_Crosshair Style 5, and it's pretty similar to this crosshair style. It doesn't move when you jump or anything, but it does change the gap when you change a weapon. So for example here, look at the gap now with an M4. When I bring a pistol out, the gap gets bigger. As you can see here, the gap changes. And it kind of reacts to your shooting, but not like the other dynamic crosshairs. So if I just shoot here, as you can see, my crosshair jiggles a little bit. But it doesn't really expand too far, but it does move when you shoot, and it expands on different weapons. The gap is a little bit different on different weapons. Personally, I don't like it because if I have a perfect crosshair for my rifle and I'm switching to my pistol, the gap's a little bit bigger. I don't like it, but that's up to you. Maybe you like the little reaction shot it gives you, the little feedback it gives you from the shot, while also being pretty much static. In terms of jumping around and ducking and whatnot, it doesn't change. So that are all the styles, guys. Let's go into the other crosshair commands that are available to us. Going into it, we have CL_Crosshair_Draw Outline, and that's pretty straightforward. And actually, you know, I really like it on Inferno and certain maps. I mean, you could have a crosshair for every map if you really wanted to, but such as a really white wall, if I'm using the crosshair light blue and I put it against this wall, it's very hard for my eyes to see this. But if I put it against a little bit darker of an area, I can see this crosshair very well. But such as playing Moto here, it's really hard for me to see my crosshair, so I really like to have this draw outline 1 on, and it draws a black outline around the edges there. And you can change that thickness, the outline thickness, such as that. So you can kind of, you know, you can even do, 0.5 seems like it kind of goes inverted a little bit there. But yeah, you can change the outline thickness with CL_Outline thickness. So that goes along with the draw outline. So you have to have that enabled first. And let's go to the next one. These dynamic commands are only with the classic crosshair, which is Crosshair Style 2. Going into the alpha is how transparent your and how visible your crosshair is. So if I do like 100, oops, did erase the A there. I do 100. So you see my crosshair kind of fades into the background. It's more transparent. And if I put 255, which is the max, it's as bright as possible and full 100% visible. So that's what CL Crosshair Alpha is. So maybe you don't like your crosshair to be exactly 255 and you like to fade away the color a little bit. You can drop it down to like 200 or whatnot. I used to do that a little bit. And then you have some preset colors, one being green, yellow, blue, light blue, and those are just some preset colors there. And then you have the RGB as well, which is the red, green, blue, and you can make any color you want by using that scale there. And yeah, just changing the colors and pretty much let's see if I can change a color here, whatever. Oh, you have to be CL Crosshair Color 5, which is the custom one, and then you get to change the color once you're at CL Crosshair Style 5, which is the custom one, which I believe game settings. Oh, yep, it's not even in here. Okay, so yeah, you'd have to do CL Crosshair Color 5, and then that enables. That is what enables the RGB to start working. The underscore RGB. So once you have color 5, I use light blue, which is preset 4, so that's me. Just keep going through these settings for you guys. So we're through the color. We got the dot, pretty self-explanatory. That puts a dot in the middle of your crosshair if you like that. I like my crosshair to be a little bit thicker, so I don't like the dot in the middle. But that's that. We have next, we have the gap, which is how much gap is in the middle there. So 10 is a big gap, and -1 makes it really tight. Getting even tighter there. As you can see, that makes it pretty dang tight there. Let me go back to my style. And then -1's pretty tight there, and if you have like a gap of a 2, it puts a bigger gap in the middle. So preference, once again, how much in the space in the middle do you like to see, you know? Going to the next one, we have scale, which is irrelevant, I believe now. It goes all with size. I'm not sure if that one's still relevant with a different crosshair style, but I'm pretty sure that one might be irrelevant now. Going into crosshair size, that'll actually change the size of your crosshair. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, etc. And that is that. That's CL underscore crosshair size. Going into the next one here, we have the style, which we went over, which is pretty much the settings, the classic, the default, you know, the classic dynamic, the classic static. That's the ones I went over already, and they're actually in the game settings. Then we have the thickness, so you can be 0.5 and make your crosshair really thin like that, and then maybe you know, put a dot with a thin crosshair or whatnot, because then the dot looks a little bit better. And then we'll go use alpha. Once again, just a transparent command. Putting it at 0 makes it transparent, and then putting it at 1 makes it nice and bright there. So that is all the crosshair commands, guys, and once again, it's all preference. Maybe you like a skinny crosshair with a bigger gap and a dot like this one. I personally, you know, this one's pretty nice, a skinnier crosshair with a bigger gap and a dot. If I do use the dot, I like a bigger gap, but if I'm not using the dot, see how crosshair dot, I personally like to put the gap a little bit tinier, something like a 0 here, and I like to have my crosshair a little bit thicker so I can see it. CL crosshair thickness 1.5. So I like this crosshair. This crosshair is, you know, pretty much my favorite. I use size 4, size 3. You know, it doesn't really matter what you use. Once again, just get a feeling on it, and just wanted to show you guys all the options you have available in your console as well as your game settings. So thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.